Hey guys, welcome back. Today we have a video on the last thing about fractions is how to divide them. So we're going to be in lesson 4-6 and we're going to divide whole numbers by a fraction. Today's date is 10/5/18. Sorry for scrunching that into the corner. And what we're going to do is we're going to hear, as part of our rules on how to divide with fractions, it's going to sound a lot like multiplying with fractions. So basically we're going to do some kind of pre-steps, and once we get those pre-steps done, then actually we're going to end up multiplying. How cool is that? So let's talk about what you need. Number one, numero uno, muy importante. There must be two fractions. So just like with multiplying, you need to have fractions only. So if you have a whole number, we're going to have to change it to a fraction. If you have a mixed number, you're going to have to change it to a fraction. So again, we'll reiterate that. So if we have a whole number, all we're going to do is take that whole number and we're giving it a denominator of 1. So give it a denom. Remember how I like to abbreviate? A denom of 1. And then magic presto, we have a fraction. Okay, the other one is a mixed number. And that process is a little bit more work. We need to convert it to an improper fraction. And if you remember, I used something like a sideways V. So if I have 2.5, I'm going to multiply the denominator times the whole number, and then I'm going to add the numerator. That's going to become your new numerator, and the denominator stays what the denominator was, 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5, and we would get 5/2. Number 1. Next, I'm going to give you a step where you don't do anything. You're welcome. And I'm going to yell at you, though. Do nothing. In fact, I'm going to be emphatically yelling at you. Do nothing to the first fraction. Okay, well, that's easy. Thanks. I'm always trying to help you guys, right? Here comes the weird part. We're going to change the division symbol to multiplication. Change the division to multiplication. Okay? And this, you can't just change an operation and say, call it a day, great, we did it, move on. No, if you're going to change the operation, you have to change what comes after the operation. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the reciprocal of the second fraction. Take the reciprocal of the second fraction. Okay? So, what I mean by reciprocal, and I'm going to give you several examples right here. If I have 1/2 the reciprocal flips the denominator into the numerator and the numerator into the denominator. So the reciprocal for 1/2 is 2 over 1. Notice that I can't do equals between them because no one would agree that 1/2 is the same as 2 over 1. So that's why I'm using that arrow. So if I have 2/3, my reciprocal would be 3/2. If I have a whole number, 5, what I'm going to do is remember there's an imaginary 1 underneath it because 5 and 5 over 1 are the same. So when I take the reciprocal, I get 1 over 5. If I have a mixed number, I can't do a reciprocal until I first change it into an improper fraction. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, and then have a denominator of 2. That's an equals because 1.5 and 3/2 are equal to each other. And then the reciprocal would be 2/3. Okay? Now, what is significant about reciprocals? Well, if I multiply reciprocals together, the product is 1 because I have 2 over 2 equals 1. So actually I'm going to write that in there. Anytime I have the same thing in the numerator and denominator, it's 1. Why? Because 2 divided by 2 is 1. I have 2/3 times 2/3. Notice I'm using the dot for multiplication. Oh, wait a second. I did that one wrong. 2/3 times the reciprocal 3/2 would give me 6 over 6, which equals 1 whole. 5 over 1 times 1 over 5 would give me 5 over 5, which equals 1 whole. 3/2 times 2/3, 6 over 6 equals 1 whole. Okay? So this is what we call the inverse property of multiplication. So I'm going to write that down. Inverse property multiplication. And it says if you multiply reciprocals, the answer is always 1. Okay? Now, let me tag on to that for just a little bit. We actually have another name for reciprocal, and it goes with the name of that property. So reciprocal is also known as and this is why we don't like to use this one, multiplicative inverse. They mean the same thing, okay? So multiplicative inverse, that's the number that when I multiply it by the original number, I'm going to get 1 as the product. Now, obviously, we like to use reciprocal. It's a much shorter word to say. And the reason why that multiplicative, that's taking the verb, or the noun multiplication, and making it an adjective, multiplicative. So, there's your grammar lesson in your math class. Okay, so moving on. We have 2 fractions. We do nothing to the first number. Actually, I'm going to change that word. I don't like that. Let's change that to fraction. That's going to make me feel better. First fraction. Sorry, I just made you erase. Change the division symbol to the multiplication symbol. Take the reciprocal of the second fraction. And then we went over what a reciprocal is. All right, step 5. This takes such little time to do, more time to write. Now we're ready to multiply straight across. Or multiply your fractions. Oops, forgot my R, yikes. Now we're going to follow the exact rules we did before on our notes from lesson 4.2 to 4.4. I like to try to pre-reduce, so I'm just going to remind you about that. Pre-reduce, multiply, straight across. In other words, numerator times numerator over denominator times denominator. Okay? And the last thing that we need to do is to double check. So this word I'm going to use is a word that I need you to comprehend. Always. Always reduce the final answer. And reduce means this. If I pre-reduced everything, my final answer should be reduced. If I canceled out common factors after I did the multiplication, my final answer should be reduced. Okay? This does not mean convert to an improper fraction, or from an improper fraction to a mixed number. It doesn't mean that at all. Okay? You can do that if you want to, but the only time you need it is in the situation of the word problem. So, convert improper fractions to mixed numbers when you have a label for your answer or it's a word problem. Now, word problems do have labels. So there are two ways to think about the same thing. Okay? All right, so we're going to do a couple of examples. So first is real simple. Let's practice that idea of find the reciprocal. And you'll see this on your practice. So they're going to give you a value. So we'll start with 1/7. Your job is to take the reciprocal. And the reciprocal just means we're going to flip things around. That's it. That's all you would do on that one. Okay, let's try another one. So 4, remember, is the same as saying 4 over 1. Then we take the reciprocal, and we would get 1 over 4. Okay? All right, then let's go ahead and we're going to practice dividing. So I'm going to do that over to the right side. Directions are going to say divide. So this problem, let's see, we've got 2 divided by 4/5. So remember what we said, we must have fractions. So we're going to give 2 the denominator of 1. And we have the division problem. Now that we've started, now it's time to manipulate this problem. So 2 over 1 stays. Division becomes multiplication. But in order to change the operation, I need to change what comes after it. And that change is going to be the reciprocal. So we're going to get 5 over 4. So that's going to be what happens. All right, now I'm going to look for anything that I can cross-cancel. 2 goes into itself once and into 4 twice. And then I'm going to go ahead and multiply straight across. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 2 is 2. Now, I'm perfectly happy with this answer, so you can stop there. It just kills me when kids go ahead and change those to mixed numbers and they do the math wrong. I can't give you full credit, even though the improper fraction was part. was right. So just leave it, okay? All right, one more, and then it's good night. We have 5 divided by 2/7, so we're going to rewrite 5 as 5/1, divided by the 2/7. So then we keep 5/1, we change, and I'm going to show you using the dot for multiplication symbol. We're going to change division to multiplication, and then we're going to take the reciprocal of 2/7, which is 7/2. Now I'm looking, 1 to no, 5 and 2, no, 7 and 1, no, 5 and 1, no, 7 and 2, no. So we're going to multiply straight across. 5 times 7 is 35. 1 times 2 is 2. And that's it. All right, good luck tonight.